Okay, with this video, I'm going to give you my Elite 8, Final 4, and National Championship pick. Now for the East region, for those two teams, I have number 1 seeded Duke facing off against Michigan State. With Duke, they're 6th in the country in points per game. They're in the top 20 in offensive efficiency. The biggest problem with this team, they're in the bottom 15 in three-point percentage. So this team actually struggles when I don't know if you guys noticed when they played against Syracuse in the ACC conference tournament, they struggled against playing against zone because they have a lack of shooters. And obviously the concern is if Zion gets into foul trouble, where's the front line? Will Bolden come back, their center? Because they're pretty thin up front. So I think you can see teams trying to take advantage of that if Zion's out the game or if he's in foul trouble. That could be another cause for concern, especially with their lack of shooting. So I think Duke is more vulnerable than what people think, but this Duke team is very athletic, and they're basically one of the top. They're number 1 in the country in blocks per game, and they're one of the top 5 teams in steals per game. So they really rely on turnovers to create for their offense, kind of like how the Miami Heat team when they had LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. They force turnovers to create for their offense to create those extra points and those extra possessions. They're actually ranked 20th in the country in rebounding rate, and they're actually 12th in the country in shooting defense, and they're 10th in the country in effective possession ratio. That's pretty efficient. This team is a pretty efficient team. It's just, again, their struggles is really their three-point percentage because they have a lack of shooters. I know in the past Duke had shooters with Redick and Shane Battier and those type of players, and Chris Duhon and all those guys. But now it's just based on athleticism. Ever since Coach K has had the one and done, the team has kind of have a lack of shooting. Michigan State is ranked in the top 15 in offensive efficiency. They're in the top 20 in effective field goal percentage. They're ranked 20th in the country, actually in the top 20 in three-point percentage. They're in the top 20 in defensive efficiency. They're 3rd in the country in shooting defense, which is really good. And they're 6th in the country in the rebounding rate. Now, I could see Michigan State beating Duke, but the only way this will happen is if Zion's in foul trouble. With that being said, I like Duke to advance to the Final Four. For the West region, I have the 1-seeded Gonzaga playing against a Cinderella team, Buffalo, the 6-seeded team. This Buffalo team can match up with almost anybody. But I'm not going to go too much with the numbers because the numbers favor Gonzaga. Gonzaga is probably one of the most balanced teams in the tournament. Buffalo has a slight shot, but I like Gonzaga by double digits against Buffalo. For the South region, I have Virginia, the number 1 seed, playing against number 2 seed Tennessee. Now, the South region is probably the weakest region out of all the regions. I like UVA, this team, because they did prove their offensive efficiency and their points per game over last year. But they're playing against a pretty good Tennessee team. Virginia is ranked 4th in the country in offensive efficiency. They're ranked 4th in the country in three-point percentage. They're ranked 20th in the country in effective field goal percentage. They're top 25 in the country in rebounding rate. They're number 2 in the country in fewest turnovers per game. They're 4th in the country in defensive efficiency. They're number 1 in the country in fewest points allowed. They're 4th in the country in shooting defense, and their effective possession ratio is in the top 20. Now, that's pretty good numbers for a Virginia team. One of the concerns I have with this team is they play a boxing one in terms of their defense, which creates the vulnerability of a solid post player like Williams for Tennessee. Now let's look at for Tennessee. They're top 10 in the country in points per game. They're top 10 in offensive efficiency. They're top 20 in effective field goal percentage. Their shooting defense is in the top 30. But I like Tennessee to beat UVA based on the matchups. I think Williams can really expose this defense. They're pretty athletic in terms of the perimeter. I like Tennessee winning this matchup. So I got Tennessee in the Final Four. Next matchup in the Elite 8, North Carolina versus Houston. Now, let's look into North Carolina. North Carolina is third in the country in points per game. They're in the top 25 in offensive efficiency. They're fifth in the country in rebounding rate. They're in the top 35 in defensive efficiency, and they're in the top 30 in effective possession ratio. But my concerns with Carolina is they give up too many points from time to time against some pretty good, well-balanced teams, and that's Houston. This Houston team is pretty balanced with Ralph Sampson, and they got one of the best players in America on that team in that conference. But I think Houston could struggle against this fast-paced offense with Carolina. I think Kobe White could be a difference maker for this team. I like the Heels in a close matchup by 3 points. UNC advances to the Final Four. Now, for my Final Four, I have Duke facing off against Gonzaga, and I have Tennessee facing off against North Carolina. 3 1 seeds and 1 2 seed with Tennessee. Now let's go with the Duke and Gonzaga matchup. Both of these teams did face off against each other in the Maui Invitational, and Gonzaga got the best of them. That was with Zion playing. Keep that in mind. And then for the other game, you have Tennessee versus North Carolina. They did face off against each other in a non-conference matchup, and Tennessee won. Will North Carolina get revenge? Stay tuned. With the first matchup, Duke and Gonzaga. This is a matchup between the most talented team versus the most balanced team. I think Gonzaga, they're going to mix up their defenses against Duke, and this will be a pretty close game, but the reason why I have Gonzaga winning this game is because they're just too balanced and they do not turn over the basketball. I think they're going to force Duke to shoot low percentage shots from 3, and it's going to cause Gonzaga to get those long rebounds and take it up into transition or look for and get some good looks. I like Gonzaga in a close game by 2 points to advance back into the national championship game from 2 years ago. Now for the next game, we have Tennessee and Carolina. This Tennessee team, they're playing pretty high. Even though they lost in that conference championship game, this Tennessee team, they have inside, outside presence. They have veteran leadership. But you also could say the same thing for North Carolina. Kobe White, I know he's young. They have Cam Johnson, one of the best three-point shooters in the country. Luke May, who's a double-double machine. And you have Nasir Little off the bench. And you have Kenny Williams, who's one of the most He's probably one of the best perimeter defenders in college basketball. He gave RJ Barrett some problems over the last 2 matchups, you guys. So with that being said, I have Carolina in a close game. I think Kobe White's speed is the difference maker. He's the huge X factor. I think this is going to be the game that Kobe White's stock will rise. And he gets North Carolina into the national championship game, which will create a matchup of 2 years ago with Gonzaga and North Carolina. And I have the North Carolina Tar Heels winning it all against Gonzaga in a very close game again. Kobe White is the most outstanding player for North Carolina. Cam Johnson will go off from 3. This final score is 77-75 North Carolina, and the Tar Heels win. Thank you guys for tuning in here on the Sportshead Radio. You guys go ahead and follow me on SoundCloud, Twitter, and on Instagram at Sportshead Radio. Go ahead and follow me on Sportshead Radio 1 on Periscope. Guys, click and subscribe to the Space Entertainment Network here on YouTube. Go ahead and follow them on Instagram at the Space Entertainment Network as well. You guys have a good one. Enjoy March Madness. Peace.